Hi, this is Chatterboxing. I'm Sean. I want to talk in this video about Terence Crawford. I want to talk about the fight he had Saturday night with Jose Benavidez, and I want to talk about a potential fight against Errol Spence. I'll start with the fight from Saturday night. I liked it. It was entertaining. It was a good performance from Crawford, solid performance. Benavidez, that's actually the first time I've seen Jose Benavidez fight. I mean, I know who he is, obviously. I've heard the name before. I've seen his brother fight a few times. So I know of him, and I know that he's of a sort of decent level, but that's actually the first time I've seen him fight. Now, for the most part, I think Benavidez did as well as he could have done. I'm not sure what he was trying to do, like standing in front of Crawford with his hands down. That to me seemed like a very, very silly tactic. I mean, if you've got someone who is as quick, as sharp, like razor sharp reflexes, very fast hands, very accurate, very quick feet. If you're going to stand in front of someone like that, if you haven't got ridiculous reflexes or just a 6-7 inch reach advantage on him, you can't stand there with your hand. You've got to have like a pretty solid, like hands up type guard. I mean, so I'm not quite sure what he was trying to do there. He was just getting beaten to the punch. Now he does have, he did have a height and reach advantage. I don't know how big the reach advantage was, but Crawford negated that with his timing and his speed, which was impressive. Because he was good with that, Benavidez, and I would like to have seen him, say, if I was his coach, I would have had him have his hands up a bit more, because he was getting hit quite a lot. But at the same time, the first few rounds, he was catching Crawford quite a bit. He's catching him with some counter punches. He's obviously tall. He knows how to fight tall. He was just overmatched, really. He was just Crawford was just too good for him. Aside from that, I thought Benavidez did the best he could. He sort of hung on in there until the 12th. His knee. I mean, he says his knee went. I mean, he wasn't really making excuses about it, to be fair to him, but he mentioned it about his knee went. And looking at the fight, it did, to me, sort of correspond with what he was saying. Looking at the reaction from that round, he did start to really slow down. Crawford's working the body pretty well. The thing with Crawford, he's got I love his punch selection. It's brilliant to watch. You can just stand in front of you, like razor sharp jabs, body shots, hooks, like get you around the side. It's just a constant barrage with Crawford. So that may have had. Well, it definitely had something to do with it. It may have had a lot to do with it, but I think the knee plausibly had a lot to do with it as well. I mean, he got shot in the knee, from what I hear, like shot in the kneecap, blew it up 3 years ago, something like that. Since then, he's had a couple of fights, been quite inactive. Now, I've never been shot in the kneecap, but just. I mean, any kind of intense movement, I don't know, boxing, you just try to do a bit of skipping or shadow boxing, and your knees, you need like a strong knee joint to maximise your potential and something like that. So any like serious injury to the knee is definitely very, very bad for boxing, and very detrimental to your movement. So don't get me wrong. He was outgunned in every department. Crawford was clever than him, quicker than him, better punch selection than him, better reflexes than him, better defence. He had everything going for him. So it didn't make any difference to. Well, I don't think it would have made any difference to who would have won the fight. I think Crawford was too good for him. But the point I'm making is that with that handicap, I would have liked to have seen Crawford do a bit more damage, really, before we did. I mean, one thing I do like about Crawford, I give him a lot of credit for his mentality, his attitude. He was clearly well up on the scorecards. I mean, Benavidez probably won, like, I don't know, 2-3 rounds tops. He could have quite in the last couple of rounds just easily just coasted to him. He doesn't. He wants to, put a beating on you. And he wants to put on a show, and he wants to win in style. So you've got to respect that. And that's what he did. And in the end, it was just caught him with a lovely uppercut, and that was enough. But it took 12 rounds. It took 12 rounds against someone who he was just sort of beating up all night, really. I mean, Benavidez caught him. He did catch him with quite a few punches, but generally Crawford was massively outlanding him, outworking him, breaking him down. For me, it took. I'm not saying it's like a massive. To be honest, I don't really know about Jose Benavidez either. I know he's unbeaten. I don't know like what names he's got on his record, what quality of opponents he's beaten, but he's never been stopped before, so he may just be as tough as old boots for all I know. But still, going into a fight with someone like Errol Spence, if I was Crawford's team, or like that would concern me a little bit, because against Errol Spence, he's someone who just constantly presses the action, very, very relentless. He's not just some like relentless, like headless chicken. He's relentless, but there's a method to his madness, and he knows exactly what he's doing. So he's going to force you to fight. It doesn't matter how good you are at moving, you're not going to be able to avoid it. So I can see Crawford like beating Errol Spence in a punch. I can see he's definitely a lot quicker on his feet. He's got quicker reflexes. He's a lot more athletic. But Errol Spence is going to do damage to him when they get into these exchanges. And if he's not able to really do that much damage to Errol Spence, I do wonder like if he can go like the full 12 rounds, because sooner or later that is going to accumulate, and I just see quite a big difference in brute force, really. Now Crawford obviously has his advantages. He's a lot more versatile than Spence. He's really, really athletic. I mean, he reminds me a little, not in a lot of ways different, but he's got a bit of Mayweather about him. That he can just really kind of move in and out very quickly and sort of glide around the ring. He's going to, if he fights Errol Spence, he's going to need to fight a perfect fight, in my opinion. Now, I still see it as a tough one to call, but I've said really from the start, if you put a gun to my head, I would pick Errol Spence. I just favour. I think they're both skillful. I just think that the way Errol Spence fights, and I just think his brute force ultimately would be too much for Terence Crawford. I don't see when Errol Spence was going to fight Kell Brook. Now, the reason that I was confident, and I wasn't that confident even then, but the reason I was sort of a bit confident that Kell Brook was going to be able to beat Errol Spence, I thought he was the only person that could beat him in the welterweight division. And even then, I was sort of like, "Oh, this is a real tough fight." I thought Kell Brook had enough like physical strength as well as skill to kind of put it all in to beat Errol Spence. I thought he could kind of hold him off, push him back, hit him hard enough, and just kind of drain him a little bit, just with sheer like physical strength. Now Crawford just doesn't have that. He's quicker. He's a sharper. I mean, Kell Brook's a good counterpart, but Crawford's a lot sharper. But I don't know. I just don't really see how. I think Errol Spence is underrated in terms of his skills as well. People think that he's just that it's going to be literally Terence Crawford has all the skill and Errol Spence is just some kind of straightforward, just sort of slugger type character. I don't really see it like that. He knows exactly what he picks his punches very well, breaks you down, controls the distance very well, and he's got quite good movement as well. Not as good as Crawford. He's nowhere near as quick and athletic and not quick on his feet, but he knows how to cut off the ring, and I think he's going to make Crawford fight. The other thing I would say is that Crawford, he's so sharp, like in front of you, and he's very quick at getting his hands back. Now you saw against Benavidez where the speed he can get the jabs in on you and just punish you from, like, if you're standing in front of each other. I mean, he can just hit you load of time, and then very quickly he can sort of protect himself straight after. So if he was fighting Errol Spence, he would need to try and make him pay with those counters, but then very quickly he needs to get his hands back to protect the body. He does protect his body quite well. Like you saw Benavidez try. I mean, Benavidez was so predictable. He's like swinging those like big like right hooks, or kind of, I don't even know what you call it. It's like a sort of swinging windmill almost, like to the body. And he was like blocking them all night. But Errol Spence he gets himself into much better positions. He creates space. He creates angles. He's got quite efficient feet. So, I could see it's going to be a lot more difficult for him to protect that body. So I say, if he beat, I mean, a lot of people are saying, "Oh yeah, he'll beat Spence." He may well do. I mean, he's a lot quicker, and he can really mix it up as well. I mean, he can go southpaw, good on the inside, good at fighting on the back foot. He's got a lot of tools, and he just reacts very well. Do you know what I mean? He adapts very well, is what I'm going to say. Like you see, pretty much every fight I've seen of Crawford, he's after the first few rounds, then he really just starts to dominate. Now, I've never seen him fight anyone as good as Errol Spence, but that's a pattern. Like he is, like I say, he's got that kind of Mayweather, got that about him. Do you know what I mean? He's got that, I say, the athleticism, but also just the ability to just know what you're going to do before you do it and just come up with a way to counter it. So that's something that potentially could happen. He's obviously, I think the thing that could be potentially his undoing though against Spence is that he's like, look at this fight in the like 12th, like 11th, 12th round. No, he's completely dominated the fight, but he's still there on the front foot trying to knock the bloke out. Now, if he was fighting Errol Spence, for me, the last thing he wants to do is get into a firefight with him. He's significantly bigger. I mean, maybe they're the same kind of height, I don't know, but Spence is like a big, strong, very, very strong power puncher, and he's very, very aggressive, gets a lot of leverage. So I don't think he wants to get into that kind of, well, I know he doesn't want to get into that kind of fight, but I think his mentality and his attitude, I think sooner or later, he's not going to be happy with just, boxing on the back foot, and he may be forced into it once he starts feeling a few of them. He's like, whoa, I don't really fancy too many more of them. And then, but I think he's got the kind of mentality that he's going to want to get in there and, do you know what I mean, have a tear up, which I think would be a bad idea for him. Now, one thing I would say, it doesn't really look like at the moment it's either of them are any rush to make the fight. I think from both their perspectives and from their team's perspectives, they quite rightly see each other as their biggest challenge. There are also other big names in that division, so I think it's quite definitely from their team's perspective. I think from them, because we know what the American fans are like. They're going to put a lot of pressure on those two to fight, and I think that might make those two. Hopefully, you'd think it might make those two want to step up. But in terms of their teams, I mean, especially like Errol Spence. I mean, Errol Spence is there. They've got he's got Sean Porter. He's targeting Keith Thurman coming back. Now, all of these are easier fights, in my opinion, than Terence Crawford. So you're going to want to, if you're his management, you're going to want to have those fights first, and then make the bill after making that money, getting those names on the record. That kind of makes more sense. But Terence Crawford seems to be growing into the division as well. I mean, this is his second fight. He fought his first fight, like a rough, tough, big, but limited Jeff Horn, but still a big lump who's kind of quite aggressive, and so that was a good start to the division. And he completely outboxed him and beat him up. So that was good. Then he's fought this guy who's tall, tough, rangy. And managed to stop him eventually. So he's making good progress in the welterweight division. So I'd say, to be honest, from Spencer, from a tactical perspective, I'd say the sooner they got him, the better, because they'd have that physical advantage that I think Spence has would be better now, would be more obvious now than potentially it would be a couple of fights down the line. Also, I don't know how long Errol Spence is going to be able to stay welterweight, or if he does stay, how that's going to affect his performance. Do you know what I mean? Because he's obviously getting a bit older. Inactivity of Errol Spence as well potentially is a problem. I remember when he fought Kell Brook, that was a great victory. I was supporting Kell. I was quite disappointed, but great performance, massive credit to him. He had a lot of momentum at that point, and then he fought. He didn't fight again for ages. Before the Kell Brook fight, he didn't really fight for a long time. So he hasn't, and then he fought Lamont Peterson, and then obviously, what's the other bloke called? Campo. And then he hasn't. And then he's on Twitter saying, "I need a fight." Sean Porter doesn't want to fight, and Danny Garcia doesn't want to fight. They're not going to want to fight unless they get paid loads of money. So the inactivity for Errol Spence, I think, could be a big disadvantage as well, because Terence Crawford, he's fought a lot more in the last few years. ESPN is like a new well, that ESPN Plus thing is, it's quite a new platform, so they're a bit more, they're spending a lot of money, putting on a lot of dates, a lot of events. So I think Terence Crawford is going to be more active. So I think Errol Spence, really, they need to pull the finger out, get him more active, start getting him some fights. If basically Sean Porter and obviously Keith Thurman's out of the equation, Danny Garcia, and they don't want to fight in some silly money, at least get some other fights in. I mean, he's supposed to be. He doesn't have a promotional company, does he? I know Al Haymon's advisor, Showtime. He's sort of exclusive. That's the problem. Like, he's sort of exclusive to show. There's a lot of platforms. You've got like ESPN, DAZN, was the HBO aren't out anymore. But there's like, if he's a free agent, he could sort of fight on different places. He could fight on ESPN, fight on DAZN, then fight again on Showtime. So the inactivity of Errol, it's a bit disappointing, and it's a bit. He's lost a lot of that momentum. Because he fought Carlos Ocampo when he was at the Dallas Cowboys, and that's a massive name in America, big brand. You know what I mean? That was a real good opportunity for him to really kind of raise his stock, make him a real big name in America, which he's got all the tools to do. But the inactivity is it's a real fucker, and I think it might affect him in this fight as well. So obviously, this is the fight I want to see. Now, Terence Crawford, he didn't say he wanted to fight Errol Spence after that fight. I don't think he's in a major rush to do it. Errol Spence wasn't at the fight, which would have been nice. I mean, if I was Errol Spence, I would just forget all this Sean Porter and all that stuff. Because he was at that fight, turned up at the Sean Porter fight, got in the ring, called him out. Now, do you know what I mean? If you're going to do that against Sean, everybody knows that Sean Porter doesn't really want to fight. Sean Porter hasn't wanted to fight Errol Spence for as long as I can remember. So if you're going to get in the ring and like say, oh, come on, let's fight against someone, why not do it to Terence Crawford? And Terence Crawford is someone who, he didn't say, I want to fight Terence. He's not going to back down. Do you know what I mean? If he got in there, put it on him, Terence Crawford would say, let's have it. And then you put the ball, you put the wheels in motion, because he's saying he needs a fight. This is the one for me. That's the one I want to see. Do I want to see Errol Spence against Sean Porter? I mean, I'd like to see it, but I pretty much know what's going to happen. Errol Spence is going to stop him. I don't believe Sean Porter particularly wants to fight, so why would I get that excited about it? Terence Crawford, on the other hand, this is where a lot of people, it's pretty much 50-50. I mean, I've gone a few like Facebook boxing groups, I've seen a few polls, and it's pretty much 50-50, more or less. Now, a lot of people saying, Crawford will school him, he's too skilled, he's this, he's that. Other people saying, Spence will just steamroll through him, and so we don't really know. So this is, along with the Joshua Wilder, I think this is the fight right now that the boxing world want to see. So hopefully we can get it going. Hopefully it doesn't just, Errol Spence, hopefully we don't just have to wait about sort of 7 months for him to fight someone from the IBF. The problem with like Kell Brook was with the IBF, and like he just kept putting these men like Bizier and Jojo Dan and loads of people. Who are these people? Do you know what I mean? So let's hope that doesn't happen. So that's all I want to say about it for now. Let me know what you lot think. Thank you very much for watching.